welcome to Out of the Rotation, like Lance Thomas. I'm your host, Millsy, and got co-host tonight. We finally got him back. Coach Rose, how you doing tonight?
Tommy, good evening, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Can't complain. How about yourself?
Actually, just getting out of a game. We just had talked about this offline. It was not a good night for our varsity boys.
Well, hey, got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it was a rough night, a good learning experience. You know, they fought hard, just a little bit outmanned tonight, but back to the drawing board.
We'll step it up to the big boys now and talk a little bit of NBA. Now, obviously, you and I talk a lot about players we like, or maybe some under the radar players. I want to get your opinion. Who do you think the most underrated player in the NBA is?
Underrated. Wow, there's so many places you can go. I feel just the first name that popped to mind, and he might be popular right now, but I just feel like he doesn't get a ton of attention because they play out west. Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray's having a good year. He's really blossoming. He's not like a true point guard, but he kind of handles the ball a lot for Denver. But this year he's had these like explosions where he goes up for 40, goes up for 30, 7 threes. He's had a solid year. He's starting to really blossom.
Yeah, the only problem I have with Murray is he's still a little too inconsistent. If he's not scoring, he's not really impacting the game as much. I mean, he does play good defense, but I mean in terms of like the way Denver's running their offense, it's not a point guard ball dominant necessarily. They're running it through Jokic. So I think in games he disappears for a little too long of stretches. I think he could do a little more in terms of getting to the basket. He settles for jumpers a little too much. Although I do agree, and I thought when you said going out west, I thought you were going to talk about our boy Devin Booker. I'll be honest, but
don't get me started. That's my boy.
This is one that you and I have talked about, and I know he's going through a rough stretch right now. He's had a little bit of a rough beginning of the season, and that's Chris Middleton. I personally, I love his game.
He's gonna get paid this summer. His three isn't falling like it was last year, but he can defend multiple positions. He can shoot it. He can take you off the dribble. Really smart. He's a good help defender. Milwaukee's got to keep him. He's gonna get paid like $20 million plus this summer, but I think you got to keep him. He's a perfect fit next to Giannis.
I agree, and that's the biggest thing. That I think that's also why he's underrated, is because he's playing next to Giannis. It's kind of like Klay Thompson's situation, where if Klay leaves the Warriors, Klay's not the Klay Thompson we know. Maybe he'll start scoring more, but it's because he's going to be taking so many more shots. I don't think that Klay turns. Say that we'll use the Knicks or the Atlanta for an example. I don't think that he turns them into a playoff team or a playoff contending team.
No, I think the shot, like you said, the shots would go up, but the efficiency would go down. He might get exposed as not being as good as a ball handler. Like, you don't really see him in the pick and roll. Like, I'm sure he can do all that stuff, but like he is in the perfect situation. Like, you can skip the better situation for him to be in. Spots above the ball, really has to handle the ball. Wide open jumpers. He's a catch and shoot guy, elite defender. Like if he ever left to go somewhere else, he'd be absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I see it because of the money. I mean, I'm sure he would be. Well, no, it depends on the contract that he would sign with Golden State, but it would probably be close to a max, I would assume.
I'm pretty sure he said I'm not taking a discount, so he's gonna get the max this summer. So he's gonna start looking at like $30 million a year too.
Well, fuck, that's a whole nother thing. Do you max out Klay Thompson? Is he a max player? Like, I'm saying the Warriors, do you do it?
I think it's like no hesitation. He's like a part of that core. Him and Curry together is just like a perfect 1-2 combo. He's low maintenance. Like, out of all of them, he fits so well because obviously he doesn't need the ball in his hands, but he's low maintenance. Like, the rest of them are drama queens. He's just like kind of doing his thing, like hanging out with his bulldog, like playing ball, like living his life.
Well, that's why I also think that the Warriors were a better team pre-Durant. Now, that may be crazy to say, but I just think that pre-Durant, everybody's roles were defined, and they knew exactly how they were going to play, how they wanted to play. I think each player's taken obviously they've had to, but taken a little bit away from their game so Kevin Durant can get his shots and get his as well. And I think on some nights it affects him. But going back to Middleton, I was going to ask you that. Do you think Middleton, to me, it's the same thing as Klay Thompson. I don't think Middleton goes to another team and turns them into a playoff contender. I think Middleton's a great fit next to Giannis, and that's what makes him so good, is the fit on the team that he's on. Now, Milwaukee's always been a great defensive team, and he's fit that culture, he's fit that mold of a 3-and-D wing guy, but he's more than that. Now, would you agree that it's the same situation as Klay, where if he goes somewhere else, it's, he'll get more shots, the same thing, shots go up, efficiency goes down, or do you think he does make that much of a difference for a team?
No, I think it would be like, so I would see something stupid like him signing with the Magic and just being like irrelevant. Get his 20 points a night, do his thing, maybe average a few more assists, be able to run more pick and roll, but just be on an irrelevant team that just doesn't win. So like I said with Klay, maybe you want more glory, you want your own team, but sometimes you just got to know your role and take your money and just be a spot up shooter, be a good defender, all that stuff.
I agree, and I like the example of the Magic, because that's some shit I could see the Magic doing. First of all, would be going out and maxing out Chris Middleton to put him alongside Vucevic and Aaron Gordon and build around that. That would be a Magic thing to do. But
no, the Magic need more centers, man. Get a center. They only have 5 of them.
Well, they want Mo Bamba to play the 4 apparently.
Oh yeah, but they have Aaron Gordon play shooting guard too, right?
Well, shit, I think he is at some points this season.
That team's a mess.
Honestly, I think he was used on Harden a little bit in that game, which makes sense. Athleticism on Harden, getting his face, and Aaron Gordon's the kind of player who could match up with him a little bit. But
no, it makes sense, but that's not ideal.
No, I want to get back to the Warriors though, and I want to. We're both fans of Draymond Green. We both love Draymond Green's game, love him as a player. I want to get your opinion on his struggles. Now, he's shooting something like 25% from the 3-point line. That's insane. He's never been a great 3-point shooter, but he's never been below 28%. I don't think he's been below 30% in the season.
He's progressively, I think it's going down the last 3 years. The year they won 73, he was almost 40% and just keeps dipping. I think it was Christmas I was watching. Yeah, I think it was the Christmas game, and literally they were giving the Ben Simmons treatment. The guy who was guarding him was at below the foul line. They're like, please, just shoot. We want you to shoot. And he just kept clanking him, or he hesitate, try to drive into the foul line and then kick, and it was cluttering up their offense. It really ruins the spacing.
Now, what do you think? What do you attribute to that? Yo, shut the fuck up, guy. What do you attribute to that? Do you think it's the Kevin Durant effect, we'll call it, or do you think it's just a decline in play? Maybe the injuries are starting to mount up.
Yeah, he's had some bumps and bruises, a couple knee things. I think he had a back and a hamstring.
And he's no spring chicken in terms of minutes. He's played a lot of minutes over the past couple seasons, and you got to factor in the playoff runs and the NBA Finals runs where they're playing late into the season every year. The Warriors.
That and I think the other thing I think about is, this you wouldn't think it affects your shooting, but they play that death lineup, and he's playing the 5. He's banging with all these centers, these 7-footers, and he's 6'6". That's got to wear you down.
It's a great point.
So I think it takes a toll. And the other thing could be, maybe that one year was just an outlier. That 15, I think it's 15, 16, when he shot, almost 40%. Maybe that was just an outlier. He wasn't a great shooter at Michigan State. Never a great free throw shooter, but it was just maybe a 1 year where it just had a really prolonged streak. But yeah, he's falling off a cliff. He still defends, he still rebounds, he's still a good playmaker, but the shooting it might really affect them in the playoffs if he can't help them stretch the floor.
Oh, I see. I think a lot of it, not a lot of it, but I think a big reason why is Kevin Durant, and I think what I mean by that is, Draymond was the facilitator of this team. Now, he does still do a good amount of facilitating for it. But the offense ran through Draymond at the top of the key. He would see, he would, react based on that. And he would get a lot of shots near the basket. He would get a lot of layups, or he'd get fouled where he could, get to the free throw line. And playing basketball, as well as anybody else, seeing the ball go through the hoop a couple times, what that does for confidence, especially early in a game if you see your shot fall. So now if he's not getting those same opportunities, that's going to affect, confidence. And I mean, there's games where he's 0 for 3 from the field, and that's it, and he takes 3 shots the entire game.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm thinking that first finals run, they used to trap those Curry pick and rolls or trap Curry at the top, and they'd have him as like a release valve, and he would run that 3-on-2, and he would just kill people. He was killing them so bad that they had to stop trapping Curry.
That's it, yeah. So you couldn't double. Now it's kind of similar in the sense that he's still getting the wide open looks, or he still has the ability to, they move it around the horn and the defense is scrambling, and he has it up top, and he still has the, to make the decision, kick it, drive, shoot it, whatever it may be. But it's just and there's no difference in his form. His form's the same too. It's just it's like he's thinking every jump shot. He's aiming it and he's thinking about it.
You mean it's still ugly is what you're saying?
Yeah, still hideous.
Yeah, it's falling off a cliff. It's like I said, it affects their spacing. It clogs up the paint for Durant. Clogs it up for anyone who wants to go off the dribble. Iguodala likes to slash. So their offense is still great. They're gonna. I'm not too worried because when they go to the playoffs, they'll run some small ball 5, or he doesn't really have to shoot as much, and the rest of the floor will be spread with shooters. But an 82 game slog in the regular season, there's some nights where it bogs down the offense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's only 2 or 3 teams in the West that really could give them trouble down the road, and one being the Denver Nuggets, who they're playing tonight.
I was just going to ask you if you think Denver's one of those teams. What do you think about Denver?
I'm so high on Denver. I have been since the beginning of the season. It's just you look at their roster from top to bottom. They're stacked at every single position, and then they play a brand of they're playing the new modern age basketball, positionless basketball, so to speak, where you have Jamal Murray 6'3", and that's your point guard. Go back 10 years ago, 6'3" for a point guard was huge. Like most starting point guards in the NBA were 6 foot. So I mean, it's just that's a little off topic, but it's just crazy to see the difference in terms of how the game has progressed, even for guards.
Yeah, I love big guards. Wall, Curry, Westbrook. They're all like 6'3", 6'4". They're big dudes playing point guard, and they're freaks.
That's it, and they're so athletic. It's such a crazy game. But back to Nuggets, and the Nuggets are getting healthy at the right time. Like you have Jokic as your centerpiece. You have Jamal Murray, who's, as you mentioned earlier, is still blossoming. You have one of my favorite players in the NBA, in Will Barton. Like they're stacked. Gary Harris is one of the best two-way players, two-way shooting guards in the NBA. Like,
and he's been hurt.
Exactly, and he's been out. And then they haven't missed a stride because they're so deep. They have Malik Beasley stepping in, scoring 20 points a night. Like it's just next man up and positionless basketball. They have Juancho, Hernan Gomez.
I was gonna say Hernan Gomez too.
Playing the 3.
They have a lot of dudes.
That's it, and that's why they remind me of the Celtics roster in terms of there's talent from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder, in a couple years from now, how good can this team actually be? When Jamal Murray kind of peaks, when Jokic peaks, is there going to be enough shots to go around for Will Barton, Jamal Murray, Jokic, Paul Millsap may be gone at that point, but you still have Trey Lyles. There's so many bodies there. Gary Harris, is there going to be enough shots for everybody? And can everybody keep their egos aside?
I was gonna say also when the playoffs come around, you trim your rotation. Those guys are all getting minutes. Who's the odd man out when you get to a playoff series? Is it like Beasley? Is it Hernan Gomez? When you figure your starters are gonna start playing, upwards 38 to 40 minutes. There's not a lot of bench minutes to go around. You can't let a game slip away in those 10 minutes that Jokic hits or Murray or Gary Harris. But I guess, the counter to that is they have a deep bench.
Well, Well,
Yeah,
I was just going to say,
down.
that's why I think they're such a dangerous team, because Jokic goes to the bench. You still have to contend with Paul Millsap, who's a great defender. And if you're a bigger team, like say they're playing Oklahoma City and Steven Adams is still in the game, they can bring in Mason Plumlee off the bench, a true 7-footer. Hey, I'm not gonna lie, Tar Heels all day, every day, but I like Mason Plumlee. I like his game a lot. I liked him in Portland. Obviously, that trade was magnificent for the Blazers, and Terry Stotts is finally using Nurkic. Granted, he's in shape, but talk about somebody who, obviously James Harden's on a hell of a run, but what about Nurkic? He's been on a tear. He's been carrying him while Lillard's been struggling. My boy.
McCollum's been low-key having an off year, too. Yeah. Nurkic has kind of been like their second-best player for stretches.
McCollum is so inconsistent. We've talked about this before, but they got to split him up. It's the same thing as Wall and Beal. Like, Wall and Beal climaxed 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's when they made it to, they almost made it to the conference finals.
Yeah, and then now we've seen it with Portland, with Dame Lillard and McCollum, the same thing. They've climaxed. They've reached their peak. They got swept last year in the first round by the Pelicans. You would think that would be enough for management to say, okay, we got to shake something up. 3 years in a row of a first round loss, or two out of 3 years?
Yeah, I think so. And the 1 year they advanced because Chris Paul or Blake somebody got hurt. Was it both of them, Blake Griffin and Chris Paul?
I think both of them were out, but Chris Paul, one of them got hurt in the playoffs. One of them got hurt right before the playoffs.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
the problem with them is that neither of them are good defenders, and not only are they not good defenders, they don't have the size. So they're both like 6'3", 6'4". McCollum might be like 6'5", 6'6", but he's not like thick.
No.
You can't really guard a Harden. You can't guard. You can chase around Klay, but when you get to these playoff series, and it's like ISO ball, slow down, you got to have a stopper.
Well, we'll go back to the Nuggets. What happens when you're going to put him on Gary Harris? I'll take Gary Harris in a offense with McCollum's defense. Or what if Will Barton's in? I'll take Will Barton against McCollum defense every day.
For sure.
So I think that they definitely need to do something out in Portland, and it's definitely not trading Dame.
No, they can't trade Dame.
This is something that we've talked about before off air, but I want to put you on the spot. We're talking some Emmanuel Mudiay, baby. I'm putting you on the spot because I can never.
You set me up, man.
I did set you up. I'm saving the best for last.
That was the whole part of me coming on, was to talk about this guy.
That's it, to talk about Mudiay. Well, all right, I'll give a little backstory. All right, so back when what was it, 3 years ago, 2016, 2017? The draft.
I think he just left as Porzingis, so 4 years. Yeah, you're right, 3 years ago.
So 3 years ago, I was all in on Mudiay. I wanted Mudiay. I'll be honest, I was not any of the people who was in on Porzingis. I didn't want Porzingis. Porzingis terrified me. I wanted Emmanuel Mudiay.
Well, we wanted Towns, and then we started winning.
Yeah, that's true.
Games against the Magic, like game 81, 82.
That's true. We'll take it back a little bit further. We did want Towns, and then the Knicks managed to ruin that one, and then it turned.
Fucking Hardaway decided to go off for 35 in game 81 and 82. And then they lost the tiebreaker. Anyway, sorry, let's get off track.
Yeah, but that. So we were all set on Emmanuel Mudiay. There were reports. I remember this. I think I still have the picture. A report came out that day that the Knicks are leaning towards drafting point guard Emmanuel Mudiay. I got that text. My heart started pounding. I got so excited. Now, as Coach Rose had just mentioned, loves big guards. I do as well. Now you have a 6'5" point guard with crazy athleticism. Has all the intangibles. Obviously jump shot was never pretty, but that you can work on them, and repetition and working with NBA coaches, should help fix that. Well, as we all know how it turns out. Then fast forward to now, I was ecstatic last year when they got Mudiay. They got him for nothing. I wasn't expecting much. I don't think there weren't much expectations for him in general last season. But what he's doing this season, it to me is what I want to get your opinion on, because do you think it's just he's just a bad player on a bad team in the spotlight, or do you think he's actually developing? And I want your honest opinion here.
Okay.
As always.
Here's where I'm at with Mudiay. This is why I don't like him. This is my biggest gripe. I have no problem with taking the flyer out of him last year, right? So they traded for him. He took him off the scrap heap. He wasn't playing in Denver. He was basically out of rotation. That's fine. My problem is that you took Ntilikina, all right, and you want him to be point guard, and now you're not giving any minutes to Ntilikina. That's last year. Ntilikina has been inconsistent is the nicest way I can put it this year, and I'm like the biggest Frank guy in the world. He's defending, hasn't even been as good this year. All right, back to Mudiay. Here's where I'm at. He has been better this year. He has had stretches like before Christmas and during Christmas where he's scoring 30 points, and he looked better. The jump shot looked a little bit better. He's never going to be a good shooter. You can agree with me on that?
100%. I agree with you on that. He'll never be a high 30s, even a 40s or high 30s% 3-point shooter. No way.
Absolutely not. So we can agree on that. He has been good in spurts, but he doesn't do it for more than like 2 weeks at a time. He had the good week where he had 30 points in consecutive games, and then it's like 4 for 17, 7 for 17. He's still getting his assists, he's still getting his rebounds. What he does do, and why he's playing over Frank, and why you like him over Frank, is that he has that mentality where he's aggressive. He's getting to the rack and setting other people up. I wish he would stop settling for those like 15 to 18 foot jumpers and just either get to the basket or shoot threes, because that's the way the NBA is now. But he's been fine. But he's getting a lot of run on a crappy team.
Okay.
But I want him on a playoff team. That's to be determined.
Well, let's also take into consideration, or let's mention, he's 23? 22 or 23. He sat behind, in Denver, he sat for pretty much an entire year. So when you look at him in terms of development and time to develop and chances to develop, he hasn't had it. He does in New York. What's the best way for a player to develop? On getting on the court and playing. He has that chance in New York, and yes, he's a good player on a bad team. But I think it's more than that with him because, his confidence was shattered when he first came here because, he was a lottery pick that was traded. Things didn't go his way in terms of playing time and everything. And you look at his ability to get to the basket, that he is shooting better. His 3-point shooting, last season he shot 32%, but was taking 1 or 2 threes a game. This year he's at 33 or 34%, taking 3 or 4 threes a game. So, he'll never be that good of a shooter. It's what he brings for the rest of the team. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective because of how good of a passer he is. Like, you can put him, you can isolate him, or you can play him like off ball. In terms of defense, you could play him and Frank next to each other. Play Frank at the 2. Frank's not a point guard. The sooner we realize that, and the sooner Fizdale realizes that, the better everybody will be. Get him his playing time outside of point guard. He's not a point guard. That's also what makes me like Mudiay so much, is the fact that the Knicks haven't had a point guard in how long?
Marbury?
I was just going to say, going back to Marbury.
Like a pure break-you-down point guard, I'd probably say Marbury, because Jason Kidd was like 50 years old when we had him.
Yeah, and he was pretty much a catch-and-shoot 3-point shooter at that point. It was about it. And same thing with Mike Bibby. But yeah, so Marbury. So, maybe I'm a little too high on Mudiay, but I think I think there's been legitimate development in all aspects of his game. He's playing with confidence. He's so young. Why can't he be the point guard of the future? And, that's not saying Frank's not part of the future. It's just he's not a point guard.
Here's my next question for you about the great savior, Emmanuel Mudiay. We are trying to get max cap space to land a big fish this summer, the New York Knicks. So if he's a free agent this year, what are you giving him on the open market? And how much of your cap space are you eating up to sign Emmanuel Mudiay?
Well, see, I'll be honest, this kind of confuses me because he's a restricted free agent. I always thought you could, no matter what, match contracts on restricted free agents.
So you can.
So if
he can also decline that and take a qualifying offer, and he play like next year for whatever, $5 million, and then he's automatically a free agent, unrestricted free agent at the end of his 5th year. So So the end of 2020.
So would they be able to go and sign, say they go out and they sign a max player and they do that first, and then the Mudiay contract goes, do they have to say at that point, like, would that be a loophole?
That's a wonderful question. I don't know the CBA that well. That sounds like it could work, but I could also see somebody like dicking the Knicks over in the first 48 hours of free agency and signing him to a tender.
That's the only thing I don't know, because if that works, then I say you just do that, and then you can re-sign them both. Because if you can get, I mean, Moudier's not going to go, no matter what, he's not going to go out and command a bunch of money. So if you can get him on a friendly 4-year, $24 million contract, that's $6 million a year for 4 years for a starting point guard who's still young and developing.
Yeah, that's where we disagree. I wouldn't give him more than, like, if you wanted like 4 for 16, great. I'm not going above $4 million a year.
I say $6 million a year because of, in relation to today's salary cap. You know, like, no, he shouldn't be getting $6 million, but Otto Porter shouldn't have got what he got.
No, well, it's all relevant. The cap is spiked, but
exactly. So
not
like
at the same level as that. I guess like 4 for 24 is reasonable. I'm saying that only if it's we sign Kevin Durant and we match an offer for him and we go over the cap and pay the luxury tax, but we already have Durant. I'm not eating into cap space to sign Emmanuel Mudiay. Sorry, Tommy.
No, I agree, but it's but that's the next question is, if you don't get Durant, is there another max player worth paying for, excuse me?
Yeah, so like the most Knicks thing ever would be to not get Durant, not get Middleton, and then like max out like Tobias Harris.
No, but that was good. See, now I like Tobias Harris, and he's young, and he's still, look at how he's playing this year. Still, well, first of all, I love him and Gallinari alongside each other. I had a dream about this last night, that they went to the NBA. No, they beat the Warriors and went to the NBA Finals, and it was because of Gallinari and Tobias Harris. Swear to God. But
I'm just saying, like, so that's your big fish. Like for the next 4 years, now you're out of the running for anybody else.
But the problem is too is there's not, you know, what the Knicks need. The Knicks don't need more forwards. They need guards.
They need more wings. They need more wings.
They don't even need a center. It's like, exactly, they need wings. So it's like, if you have, I don't know. I mean, I get it, Durant, but
I feel like Kevin Knox is Tobias Harris if things go right.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's not just because they look alike either.
I'm fine if they don't sign Durant. I'm fine with sitting it out and fucking losing 100 games again and going for the next big draft pick.
Well, at some point too, it's going to be, you know, you're just going to have to develop what you have. Like if the Knicks next, you know, this season they say they don't get Durant, and they end up with Zion or RJ Barrett, whoever, and they end up with a great pick. That means you have Porzingis, who's still young. You have Knox, who's developing, another first-round pick who's developing, and then you would have a max contract player. How would that fit? You know, does somebody want to come and take the time to build something, and it's going to take 2 or 3 years before they're a serious contender?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
I don't know. There's a lot of questions for the Knicks heading into the offseason, but that's going to be it.
You want to do the awards part? I got to wrap up.
Yeah, I was just going to say we're going to finish it up now. We'll start with the MVP of the month. Who do you got? I think this is an easy one.
It's Harden. I hate how he plays, but like the Terry's been on has been absolutely ridiculous. What is it like? He broke Kobe's record last night. What is it? 13 games in a row with 30 plus.
Yep.
He had 30 at halftime. 35 at halftime.
Yep. No, he's playing at another level, and like you said, it's not like he also did go 1 of 15 2 nights ago from 3. They lost. That was the Magic game. He went 1 of 15 from 3.
I mean, he's without Capella, he's without Gordon, he's without CP. Like he's literally doing it by himself.
He is literally it.
And like Austin Rivers.
And the crazy thing is that they're actually winning, with the exception of that Magic game. It's the same for me. It's James Harden. You know, the Rockets went 11-4 in December. Harden averaged 36 points per game over that span. 3 of his 4 triple doubles came in December, and the Rockets moved up to 6th in the Western Conference in that span. So, you know, it's not like they're empty stats. They're leading the victories. What about your team of the month?
Team of the month. of just touched on them. Indiana, man, they've been balling.
Yo, you stealing my shit?
Yeah, I mean, that's just why we have to talk before. Dude, let me tell you something. Domantas Sabonis should win Sixth Man of the Year and Most Improved.
Most Improved, yep.
They played the Knicks 3 times. I think he scored 20 plus in all 3 games off the bench on like 80% shooting. That guy's a beast. I love him at Gonzaga. He didn't fit with the Thunder. They gave up on him. They got Oladipo, who's been down a little bit this year, but he's also been hurt. But yeah, they've been playing great ball. You know, it was always being here with Philly, Boston, Toronto, and then it was like that next level below was like Milwaukee and Indiana. But it turns out like both those teams can play. Like
they're right there. Yeah.
But yeah, the last month Indiana's been tearing it up.
Yeah, that's it for me. Indiana, they went 12-3 in December. They're number 1 in defensive efficiency. They've been without Miles Turner too, who came back tonight. They're such a gritty defensive team. They're so hard to score on. They lock down for 24 seconds. They rebound the ball so well.
Good contract here.
Thad Young's having a great year, and like you said, Oladipo's down right now. Darren Collison's playing better this year as well. Across the board, they're playing well. Bogdanovich is shooting almost 50% from 3. And we'll wrap it up with the Coach of the Month.
You go first. I went first the last 2.
Well, my Coach of the Month is Nate McMillan, obviously for Indiana. As I mentioned, he's got these boys absolutely locking down on the defensive end, and offensively, they're quietly efficient, and that's without Oladipo playing well.
Yeah, I don't disagree. He's been doing his thing. I'm gonna go out west, man. We talked about him again in the pod. Mike Malone, man. He's got these guys playing great basketball, and that's with a bunch of injuries.
Yeah.
No Gary Harris. Millsap was hurt. Who else am I forgetting?
Will Barton, Will the Thrill.
Will Barton. Isaiah Thomas, who I don't know if he should even play when he comes back, but he hasn't played a game this year. To stay alive like that and be a top seed in the West with all those injuries is kudos to Mike Malone, who never got credit in Sacramento, but he's a really good coach.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been fired from Sacramento, but that's a whole nother story. I agree, Mike Malone. It was between Nate McMillan and Mike Malone for me. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We'll do this again. We'll do for January next month. Might try to get to two a month. I like keeping them a little shorter like this, where they're about 30 minutes instead of trying to do an hour. But appreciate you coming on. I've been your co-host, Millsy.
And it's been Coach Rose, signing out.
Pleasure as always. For the Nosebleed section, peace.